We are here for the May 2023 Big Questions from Rossmore Interfaith Council and the Interfaith Council of Contra Costa County. Today, we get to hear from Father Tom Bonacci and Iraj Farzaneh. And we can't wait to get started, so we're going to jump right in and get started. Sarah, take it away.
Thank you, Will. Always appreciate you being here and guiding us through it. So welcome to all of you. Most of you have been with us before. It's always good to see you coming back. You are involved in all, I would say, almost a college level, university level study right on your Zoom screen as we listen to the different perspectives from different religions. The big question this year is, humankind good or selfish? Thank you to the Interfaith Council of Rossmore and the Contra Costa County, and to the Big Questions Committee. Gloria Sunshine, who is here, Ruth Ahern, I don't see Ruth, but she will be here, and Channing Miller. And Will, we so much appreciate you being with us 4, 5, 6, 7 years, however many years this has been going on. Will has been our Zoom host and generously hosting us. Thanks to Rossmore, Channel 28. This program is being recorded by the Channel 28 and will be put on Channel 28 in the next year or so, maybe sooner. And gratitude also to the folks at the Rossmore News who published the articles on the big questions. It indeed takes a village. So why ask questions? Why seek for answers? Asking questions is obviously one aspect that differentiates us from animals. They don't ask why they suffer, or what's the meaning or purpose of life, or who, what, where is God, or how can there be peace? What difference does it make if we explore the relationship between science and religion, or the possibilities of life or consciousness after we die? It makes a difference because most of us are at least curious. We're not just trying to survive, although too many on our planet are doing just that. To be curious, to ask big questions or ask any questions having to do with philosophy or spirituality, to seek for answers, one must have food and a home, which is something that's missing for way too many millions and millions of people. So how do the answers to these questions contribute to the quality of our life? We are obviously more than just physical beings who eat, sleep, and procreate. It adds meaning to our lives to be able to think about the answers to the questions. Through the 8 sessions of each year, we hear from 16 different religious leaders. This year, we have heard from representatives from Ananda, Buddhism, Islam, Unitarian Universalist, Sufism Reoriented, and Hindu. And today we are going to hear from a Passionist priest and Baha'i. These teachings are rich that we hear from the representatives of the different traditions. They provide us for not only food for the intellect and mind, but also for the spirit and the heart. Asking questions begins a process which goes beyond the answers, and the answers are not an end in themselves. This process is one that opens us to a wider world view than perhaps we have thought about. Asking questions stimulates our curiosity to desire to know more. Through the process of asking questions, we can seek for the higher common threads and truths which weave through all of the religions, the golden threads. These threads connect us around the planet. We hope that in sharing our spiritual views and traditions with one another, We are helping to heal a world so full of suffering and contention. Our first speaker today is Tom Bonacci, representing Progressive Catholicism. Thomas Bonacci is a Passionist priest ordained in 1972. Tom has served as religious superior for his community in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and New York City. Over the years, he has conducted scripture study programs throughout the United States. He was a campus minister at East Carolina University in Greenville, North Carolina, and Carlow University in Pittsburgh, where he taught sacred scripture. And he established the Women's Interfaith Sanctuary. He is co-founder, along with Reverend Andrea Goodman, of the Interfaith Peace Project of Northern California, which observed its 20th anniversary on September 11th, 2021. The Peace Project encourages interfaith peace and mutual respect through home-based programs, community outreach, and in-service education. Father Tom has also established the Institute for the Study of the Passion, coping with issues of abuse, anti-Semitism, and violence in religion. He currently serves as a teacher and instructor of Christ the King Passionist Retreat Center in Citrus Heights, California. Please welcome Thomas P. Bonacci.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's my blessing and privilege to be with you, and thank you for that introduction. I'm not quite so sure that I'm very good at representing Progressive Catholicism. I really try to look at everything in life from what we might call an interfaith perspective, although the word that I am now using for the past several years is interpath. And by interpath spiritual practice, I mean gleaning the wisdom of humankind from everywhere. As a matter of fact, we might even be gleaning the wisdom of the trees, the plants, the animals, the water, and the air. Our pathways cross, and whenever any two of us meet, even for the nanoseconds of light, that intersection is a wonderful time to meet another human being. As we like to say in the Sufi tradition, I am a better me because I met you. And every time we have a meeting, it's not to plan another meeting, but an encounter in this moment is the precious dimension of life. As one spiritual director once said to me, Tom, today is the most important day of your life, and now is the most important moment of your day. I am challenged by the question that has been proposed to us today. Is humankind good or selfish? Well, first of all, I must tell you, I have a certain allergy to either or questions. So whenever a question comes up before me, like, is it this or is it that? Well, that's an opportunity for wisdom. So the question gives birth to 10 other questions. We don't have time for all 10 other questions. But one thing I would put into perspective is, and I mean this respectfully, I have never met humankind. In the same way, I've never met a religion. I've never met Catholicism. I've never met Christianity. I've never met Buddhism. I cannot meet an ism. All I can meet is real live people in the splendor of creation and the world the way it is. So the question, is humankind good or selfish, invites me to a profound meditation. Tom, when did you meet humankind? I have not had that privilege. I would have to meet every person that ever lived and every person that ever will live. And I accept the invitation with great generosity and humility. I would love to meet everybody everywhere all the time. And so what I would like to share with you today in response to this rather intriguing question is a journey into the pathways of certain people I did meet, or at least heard about. Either or questions can be dangerous because they invite us to ideological thinking or simplistic thinking. But when we pay attention to the wisdom of a question like, is humankind good or selfish, we may very well discover that inside all of us, no matter how good we are, there's some selfishness. And inside many of us, no matter how selfish we might be, there's something good. This is the dynamic question. So let's now probe as best we can what the answer might be, or at least what a response might be. In my life, I have been privileged to meet people of remarkable kindness. One of the kindest people I ever met in my life was my own mother. My mother's background is one of tragedy, a woman who suffered abuse her entire life, and especially as a child. I remember once as a teenager sitting with her for coffee across the table, and I said to her, in light of your story, in light of your life, why are you the way you are? And she said to me with great humility, Tommy, I said to myself that if I ever had children, I would never do to them what was done to me. How is it possible that people who have suffered terribly, people who have been abused mightily, rise to the occasion with extraordinary kindness and goodness? I'm sure every one of us here today in this Zoom encounter can think of people within our lives who are a remarkable example of kindness, compassion, and love, and yet the story of their life is remarkably tragic. As a matter of fact, one of those people might even be you. That's why when I walk down the street, or find myself in an assembly of other people, or even a chance encounter, every person bears a story. And without that story, I have not any idea who that person is. One wise master said this, do not judge by appearance. Here's two facts that are important in the history of religion. The Golden Rule was born in the time of trouble, and the great religions of the world came into being in moments of disaster. What is it within us that responds to disaster and tragedy with uncommon hope, with great vision, with great love? We also know that people who are not so kind, people who may be selfish, that if we judge them by appearance, we can make ethical, condemning judgments about them. But if we meet their story, enter into the passion of their life, enter into the complexity of their soul, we may find there's a person there waiting for a moment of kindness. I believe that the people of great kindness, the people of great generosity, the people of great love set the standard for all of us. They remind us that inside each and every person, there's a potential waiting to develop and to grow. The failure of some invites us to compassion. The success of the many in kindness and compassion invites us to insight into what it is that we might do. As I love to say to people, when I grow up, I hope I become like my mother. It's a lifelong experience. A famous white nationalist by the name of Christian Piccolini, who was dedicated to mayhem and chaos since he was 17 years old, one day speaks of his conversion experience. He said he was beating a young Black man in the face. he held him down on the ground and was punching him. And he said, for some reason, our eyes connected. And when our eyes connected, I saw in him a human being. And my heart broke, and I asked the question, what am I doing? Christian went on to found an organization that you and I must be aware of, especially in this day and age of right-wing hatred and extremism. He founded Life After Hate. His conversion experience was to see the eyes of another person looking at him. The young man he was beating surrendered. He didn't have the strength of Christian. All he could do was take the blows passively. But he looked deep into the eyes of his would-be enemy and perhaps saw in his enemy a human being. I know sometimes you and I might get weary, but the response to selfishness in the world, the response to violence in the world, the response to hatred in the world might very, very well be compassion. Not compassion that invites us to be victims, but compassion that invites us to the full strength of our heart and all the virtues that flow from it. Our question that we're considering today invites us to reconsider the age-old question. Are human beings good or evil? I can only share with you what I believe and what I think and what I feel. Sometimes at night when I look up into the sky and see the stars, I feel loved. Sometimes when I listen to the news and my heart breaks, I look out the window to see if there's a star, and suddenly I feel loved. I can't prove this, but I believe that the most fundamental energy in the universe is love. We move in the direction of creativity. We move in the direction of hope. We move in the direction of beauty. I like to think of us as children of beauty, children of love. Sometimes we call it God, but I oftentimes experience God in the surprising dimension of other people's lives. When I lived in Atlanta and was doing advocacy work against the death penalty, I met a mother whose son was going to be executed at midnight. I sat with her. She looked deep into my eyes and she said, Tom. I said, yes, Beverly. She said, you know, my son is guilty. He's always been a bad boy. He may deserve what he's getting tonight. I wish it was otherwise. I failed as a mother. Then she asked me a question. She said, Tom, am I sinning because I love my son anyway? I said to her, oh, if I didn't have my mother, I would want you as my mother. And in this moment, you are my mother. It is never wrong to love another person. It is courageous, it's wonderful, it's transforming. You see, the generosity of the woman transcends the failure of her son. If it was indeed failure, how do I know? But she loves her son in the tragic moment, and that story has touched my heart forever. We are created in the image and likeness of the universe. We are created in the image and likeness of the mother who loves her son anyway. We are created in the image and likeness of the father who would die for his children. We must not confuse self-centeredness with selfishness. To be self-centered is to be in touch with your heart, with the energy within, and to let it radiate out to the world. I know our time runs thin, but I'd like to share with you a story, and I hope it's not too long. It's from a very beautiful book called Expecting Adam. Adam is a little boy with Down syndrome. Here's what his mother writes on the occasion when Adam was 3 years old. May I share this with you? When Adam was 3 years old, I began to lose hope that he would ever communicate verbally. His inability to speak was terribly frustrating for him, and it just plain broke my heart. I worked with him for hours during exercises the speech therapist taught me, having no success whatsoever. Sometimes Adam made random sounds that could be force-fit into words, but with any degree of honesty, I had to face it. The little boy, my son, the kid, could not talk. One day, after hours of unsuccessful therapy, I hit a low point. I took my children to the grocery store and offered them bribes if they would please be quiet. I was too tired and discouraged to enforce discipline any longer. I told them they could each pick out a treat from the candy counter. When we got there, Katie chose a roll of lifesavers, Lizzie a chocolate bar. Adam, who seemed to understand everything I was saying, walked over to a basket full of rosebuds and pulled one out. Is this what you want? I asked him. Is this what you want? He nodded. Honey, that isn't candy. You want candy. Put that rosebud back and get candy. I was exasperated. Adam shook his little head, walked back to the basket and pulled out the rose again and put it on the counter. I was baffled, so I paid for it. Adam took it gravely as the girls unwrapped their candy. He held the flower in both hands all the way home. I was putting the groceries away and forgot about the incident. The next morning when I awoke, the sunlight was shining through the window. My husband had already left for work and let me sleep. The girls were babbling in their room. As I yawned and stretched, I heard Adam walking down the hallway, pitter-pattering. He walked into the room holding the rose. The rose was in a vase. I didn't know he knew what a vase was. I don't even know how he got the vase down from the cupboard. He looked at me and I looked at him. He walked straight over to me with the rosebud, handed it to me and said in a clear, unmistakable voice, "Here, Mom, I love you." Then he turned around and pitter-pattered out of the room. I know Adam forgave me for trying to make him into a normal kid. He loved me in spite of my disabilities. He turned around with his little blue pajamas dragging on the floor and paddled out of the room. Sometimes we have to go into ourselves so we can blossom and bless the world around us. Ultimately, our question for today invites you and I to answer that question. Shall we be good? Shall we be kind? Shall we be generous? Or shall we be selfish? I think I know how you answer the question. I only hope that I may have the courage to do the same. Be at peace. Love you.
Thank you so much, Tom Bonacci. What a inspiring story. I felt tears welling up in my eyes a couple of times. Oh my goodness. You know, it's just so powerful to talk about meeting love in other humans. So now is a chance for people that are here to share their own stories or to ask Tom any questions. And you get like we'll just put on the chat box. You can raise your hand with the reactions, and we'll see you. Hopefully somebody will see you in the corner. So it doesn't hurt to have a few moments of silence while you take in all of the powerful sharing that Thomas Bonacci gave us. I'm just taking a big breath.
Father Tom,
I will.
hey, could you remind us the story of that book again?
Expecting Adam by Martha Beck, B-E-C-K. It's been around for a long time.
Well, what's interesting about Down syndrome children, I ran a daycare center, and the ones that we had in the daycare center are just the most loving, peaceful children that you could ever meet. It's that they have a special quality of selflessness about them. So it's an interesting characteristic.
And when you look at the history of how they've been treated, see, this is what's very, very important, is what is within us, and we not to judge by appearance. And that sounds very, very simple, but sometimes even our sense of compassion cuts off the beauty of another human being. That's why the mother apologizes for her deficiencies.
Can I speak? I don't know how to raise my hand. Oh, I guess I did.
That's okay.
You
You got
just
your hand
did.
raised. Go
Okay.
ahead, Chris.
Well, I was at the yoga class the other day, and I hadn't been there for about 4 years, and we're stretched out on our mats and about 6 feet apart. But this woman next to me, I had chatted with her a little bit before we went into our program. And then as we were working through the hour, she kept coughing, and she coughed, and she didn't have a mask on. And I was just getting more and more irritated. And gosh, why doesn't she wear a mask if she's coughing like that? How selfish and ignorant and blah, 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 blah. My whole judgmental bad part came out. And so afterwards we met, putting away our gear. And I said, I don't understand how you, with a cough like that, you don't wear a mask. And she said, well, I have COPD and I can't breathe through a mask. And I felt terrible. And I don't think I was really very nice at that point. I might have said, oh, okay. And then a minute or two later, I got it. Like, come on. So I caught her and I went up and I apologized. I said, profoundly, I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? And we sat there in the hallway there, up there in the gym. And we talked for about 20 minutes, and we talked about COPD and, our lives. And 20 minutes later, I realized this lesson we were good friends, practically best friends by the end of the 20 minutes. She was very, very grateful that I had apologized and cleaned it up. But this is a perfect example of you never know someone's story. And not to assume what you see on the surface. She had told all the other people in the room knew because I had told them, but she said, I made the mistake of not telling you that when I cough, that I have COPD. So she took even some responsibility on her part.
Thank you, Chris. That will help us remember to not make assumptions.
Yeah.
Colleen, go ahead.
Hi, that was a lovely talk. Thank you, Father Bonacci. One of the things I just wanted to point out is that we hear so many bad things on TV, on the news, but many stations are now beginning to give credence to those that are doing good, special people or special organizations that are doing good. So I think that more people are needing to hear the good that is going on.
Yes, that's really cool. If I can, the Museum of Courage will be opening in the San Francisco Presidio in 2025. So you might want to pay attention to organizations like that, because all over the world, there are groups like this that meet on a continuing basis. Thank you for being part of that movement.
And these are groups you don't hear about them, but there's millions, billions of individuals, all over the world, and we have been offered such a distorted view of reality through the news.
Well, the Parliament of World Religions would be a perfect example of the organizational, institutional, and personal and individual responses throughout the world in situations we can't imagine.
Yes. So Channing, go ahead.
Hi, Father Tom. Thank you so much for all of your wisdom today. What comes to my mind is the offset between culture and religion. And when we live in a culture that has been rife with hate and racism and leaning towards the selfish side of humanity, and there's been a breakdown in parenting so that children don't even learn how to be courageous or hopeful or who to trust. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on how to face things on a larger scale. I love what was the story that Chris told about the one-on-one interaction. But when it's a whole society and you're facing so much hate every day, I'm just wondering what you would say. How do we, those of us who are working towards illuminating the goodness in mankind, I would just like to have your thoughts on that.
Well, thank you for that. But my first response is I don't necessarily buy the idea that the society is in a major breakdown. I think there's institutional crisis. But the institutional crisis is based on the fact that there are a few people who are not bringing virtue to what these institutions assumed. The long history of the United States has been in the direction of human rights. What's being attacked in the United States is the human rights that have been achieved by people in the past several years. So we're at a crisis point, and it's in the time of crisis that I think we have to be careful that we don't generalize negatively. but understand that some of the forces that have come forth within, say, the United States in particular, dealing with racism, sexism, patriarchy, authoritarianism, and all that kind of thing, have been part of our history for a long time. And this may be the first time in that history that we have the opportunity to face these issues directly. So I understand it's a time of turbulence that can easily lead to despair and upset, and almost to the point where we give up our own beliefs, where we say, well, this compassion, love, kindness, and understanding doesn't work. Let's go down the other pathway, get them before they get us. I just don't simply buy it. I think we're living in a time where there's breakdown because of the lack of virtue. But that lack of virtue is not new. It's now in the powerful, and it's been permitted in the powerful. But if you look at where the people of the United States are, that's not where they are. I think the majority of people, the overwhelming majority of people, are for the full human rights of all peoples.
Amen. And that's the goodness in each of us coming out. But that's what you don't hear about. Colleen, you've got your hand up? Or maybe that's, you're saying yes. Okay.
I love that. I haven't seen that before. That's good.
Yeah, I know. That's really cute, isn't it? The little thumb up. Channing?
Yes, so thank you, Father Tom. I'd like to just go a little bit further. When we're talking about the United States, we're talking about different populations that are still facing economic, political, social, religious persecution. And life for them, as much as we would like it to be held for the common good, there still is a tremendous amount of hate and racism. We may not feel it ourselves if we're not the objects of it, but those who are the object of it, migrants, people of color, anyone who's identified as other than the white race. And I think this is what we're facing right now. And so I'm looking for a way to bring love into this equation. But if I'm going to be working in a Democratic office and somebody's going to come in like they did today with a bat and beat people up, I think we need to understand if there's a way to mitigate this instead of talking in big ideas.
We have just a few minutes before I'd like to turn to our next speaker. Tom, do you want to address what Channing just said?
Well, I think that's what the debate is. There's always people with the baseball bat. There's always people with the gun.
That's right.
And again, if you look at the history of human rights in the United States, the civil rights movement didn't come out of a seminar. It came out of people marching in the streets. And when I look today, what I'm seeing is the people walking in the streets say for something, for example, for racial equality, are not all simply black and brown. They're everybody. You're beginning to see more and more that we're crossing over the boundaries. We're crossing over the boundaries that have been defined by culture, religion, class, and standing together. That's what this meeting is this afternoon. This is the antidote and the transforming point to that violence. But don't expect those who have violence as a creed to suddenly become passive. That's when we have to be not accept their madness, but reveal our dream.
Thank you. Sunshine, and then we'll go on to the next speaker.
I just wanted to thank you, Father Bonacci, and for your really pointing out the the real answer to the question does lie in the individual. I think, like Channing, when we, or at least as I understood what she said, we see this group news, and it is so discouraging, and it is these groups of hate going against groups. But I really, I think I saw that last year in you too. And although I know of you, I don't feel I know you so well. So I am so grateful for your answer of love. And even though sometimes it seems hopeless, we can't give up. And the one line that in Les Miserables, which was during the French Revolution, I believe, is to love another person is to see the face of God. And so with that, that's all I had to say.
Thank you.
Oh, what a beautiful way to end. And thank you so much, Tom, for your sharing. It was just exquisite. Now, I would like to introduce Iraj Farzaneh, representing the Baha'i tradition. Iraj has been a resident of Lafayette since 1986 and loves walking around the reservoir and taking in the beauty of the surrounding nature. Lafayette is where he and his wife, Mona, raised and educated their 3 children. They happily welcomed their first granddaughter last month. Congratulations, that'll be another joy, Iraj. Iraj retired after more than 40 years as an energy and utility expert. Outside of a desire to learn about religion and the nature of man, his intellectual passions include energy policy and regulation and geopolitical economics. Iraj was born into a Baha'i family in Iran with a core belief in the unity of mankind. And he moved to the United States at age 18 to begin a university education. Contributing to community life has been at the center of his spiritual practice. And Iraj has served as the secretary of the Baha'is of Lafayette for more than 20 years. His fundamental belief in universal education is reflected in his regular volunteer work with youth literacy programs for children in East Contra Costa County and continuous support for community building activities that empower young people. So please go ahead, Iraj. We look forward to your sharing.
Thank you, Sarah, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you so much, Father Tom, for that wonderful, inspiring talk and the story and all the comments that followed. I really feel the love after hearing. I don't really know what to say. It's just a wonderful, wonderful group and wonderful comments. But anyway, it is my pleasure to be with you this afternoon and participate in the conversation about the big questions, particularly about the question of is man inherently evil or is man inherently noble? First, I must confess, as you heard my resume, I'm not a sociologist or anthropologist. Most of my educational and work experience has been in engineering and economics and some in public policy. But I have an interest in human behavior. Also, I just wanted to mention that my talk and presentation today reflects my understanding of the Baha'i beliefs, the faith that I was raised and studied its fundamental verities. So I have to apologize that my talk is not very inspiring and more of a practical conversationalist, but today we'll cover the question of is man intrinsically noble, the role of education in bringing out human qualities of virtues of love, of justice, truthfulness, compassion, and all those virtues that everybody talked about before. and also that the lack of education can deprive humanity from its God-given nobility. And when I say lack of education, it's mostly the lack of spiritual and moral education. And also the question of why the great advances in civilization in last 150 years since the Industrial Revolution, in just about any human endeavor in the field, in technology, in transportation, communication, healthcare, in sociology and psychology and so on, has advanced the civilization so far, but we're still seeing racism and economic system and process that has created extreme wealth and poverty, prejudices in just about everywhere, and inequality in opportunities and pay for half of the population, not just in America, but in the whole world. And that has actually deprived the woman by reaching their true potential that would actually help the humanity. So having all that, I'd like to actually share with you a couple of quotes from Baha'i writings, if I can get this share thing working. Let me. So this is a couple of quotes here from Baha'i writings that would kind of answer the questions about the nobility of man. The first one is, regard man as a mind rich in gems of inestimable value. Education can alone cause it to reveal its treasures and enable mankind to benefit therefrom. So basically, in the Baha'i beliefs, we believe that man is like a gem that is mine, and the tool that brings out its value and shine like a diamond is education. And then the second quote, which is a quote from Baha'u'llah, the Prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, is, man is a supreme talisman. Lack of proper education had, however, deprived him of that which he doth inherently possess. Now, the word talisman, as many of you know, is an object or stone that is thought to have magical powers. Things like maybe yin yang symbol, or even my grandmother's wedding ring. But the emphasis here is that man is intrinsically noble, and education can cause it to reveal the nobility. In other words, the nobility doesn't automatically come and show. It takes an effort. Now, we believe that there are two aspects of human nature: the material aspect and the spiritual aspect, or the two human material nature and the spiritual nature. Our material nature is really the product of our physical evolution. Much of it is shaped by the drive for survival of human species over the years. We don't consider our human nature intrinsically evil. Like other animals, we are subject to the needs, of physical needs. We are sensitive to hot and cold. We need food, we need shelter, we need medical care, transportation, we need education for our children. And basically, physical existence would be impossible without these characteristics of the physical nature of man. However, we believe that this alone cannot be allowed to dominate our consciousness. When it does, humanity becomes capable of cruelty that's even uncommon in the world of animals. I mean, sometimes I hate to use the analogy of animals because in many aspects they do much better than we do. Actually, I just wanted to, Sarah kindly mentioned that my wife and I are new grandparents. There were a couple of life events in last month and a half that actually made me think about this topic. One is we have a like a 6-week-old new grandchild, and I can see this beautiful, perfect being being noble. I mean, I can't really see why God would create this individual any way other than being noble. The other life event was a few days after she was born. My mother-in-law, who lives in Finland, passed away. And she was about almost 92 years old. And we went there for her funeral and services. And over 100 people actually showed up for her funeral services, which is kind of unusual. But a lot of people came, brought flowers, and they read statements or they talked about her. And I realized that I know that she was a very kind person, but her kindness and caring really extended to everybody that she met, everybody that she crossed her path. And she is like somebody who had actually worked in her life to display the virtues, the attributes of love and caring and kindness that made a difference in people's lives. But moving back to the second nature, our second nature is a spiritual nature, which is distinguished by the qualities and attributes of love, generosity, kindness, and justice. We attain that by strengthening our nature to allow it to dominate these attributes in our lives. And our spiritual aspect is strengthened through spiritual and moral education. Now, unlike the world of animal, there is another feature here that we have. I think we think that God has endowed us with free will, which allow us to develop our spiritual side along with the material side. And we have control over which side we want to dominate or emphasize over another, or do we want to balance our existence. Now, our view of human nature, that we believe that human nature is instinctively noble, of course, helps us to find common points of view with many other belief systems that present a positive outlook on possibilities of human achievement. But of course, there is the other question here that if humanity has developed such civilization in many aspects, in technology and health and science and operations and transportation and so on, why haven't we been able to apply those to solve these major social problems? We still have extreme wealth and poverty, even in the wealthiest country in the world, not to mention poor countries in Latin America or Africa or Asia. Now, what has stopped humanity from this? Is it this is form of paralysis? So I think it's important to kind of think about pitfalls to faulty conclusions. There are a lot of other doctrines about the nature of man. For example, while we agree with the view that we elevate human potential, we are careful not to give in to some doctrines such as doctrine of noble primitive that symbolizes the goodness of and moral superiority of a segment of the population, maybe the primitive people in North America or in Scandinavia that live in harmony with nature. And I think by doing that, we would really discount their capacities and abilities to develop along with the rest of the humanity. Also, equally, we are suspicious of the social theories that human beings are by nature selfish, power hungry, cruel, dishonest, and so on. And like Father Tom, I believe that there is really no this way or that way. It's really there's no dichotomy. It's what human beings try to accomplish, where they want to have a heavier part in their spiritual side or the material side. But because of this confusing, contradictory theories that humanity has come, perhaps some kind of a paralysis and made us unable to make positive action to deal with these fundamental problems of our society. And I think that is understandable because aggression and conflict come to characterize our social, economic, and religious behavior. It has done in at least in the last 150 years. And that has made many people in the belief that such a behavior is intrinsic human behavior, and therefore we can't do anything about our social problems or social events. I like to actually show another piece of a letter from this is from the Baha'i Universal House of Justice, which is the world governing body of the Baha'i faith. They wrote a letter to the leaders of the governments and leaders of the world and Baha'i and the people of the world in 1985. And this is part of that. I will read this. With the entrenchment of this view, a paralyzing contradiction has developed in human affairs. On the one hand, people of all nations proclaim not only their readiness, but their belonging for peace and harmony, for an end to the harrowing apprehensions tormenting their daily lives. On the other, uncritical assent is given to the proposition that human beings are incorrigibly selfish and aggressive, and thus incapable of erecting a social system at once progressive and peaceful, dynamic and harmonious, a system giving free play to individual creativity and initiative, but based on cooperation and reciprocity. Of course, we believe that religion has a major role in bringing awareness of spiritual education to people. It is true that some people believe that there is humans have an innate sense of dignity that prevent them from committing evil actions and ensure their spiritual and material perfection. In fact, you may know, each one of you may know some people who have those qualities, that they have a natural intelligence, high zeal, and motivation. They act in a way without the fear or of the incentives, the consequences and rewards. But if you go back to history, we believe that all these have come from the instructions of the prophets of various religions, from Christianity to Judaism to Buddhism, Islam, and so on. The other question is, like for this group, is what can we do as individuals, as small communities, or even as faith-based organizations to help to bring, to reinforce spiritual education for people, especially young people. Our education system, in my view, at all levels, offer very low to for the students to think about spiritual education. The emphasis in schools, in colleges, high schools, universities is to help the students to make them ready for jobs, to help them to have better economic and wealth security and so on, with very low emphasis on their spiritual education. And by spiritual education, I mean those attributes and that we talked about, like love and compassion and caring and letting go of prejudices that is a kind of stopped our country from, or started the world actually from progress, because it's shown that just the material progress is not going to do it. There has to be a balance between material and spiritual civilization, and particularly for young people. And what can we do as a group or as individuals? Well, I think one thing that we are doing, we're encouraging meaningful and elevated conversations, such as what's going on here this afternoon with this group, with our families, and as well as our families and our communities. I wanted to also talk about an example of a Baha'i inspirational program for the youth between the ages of 12 and 15. We call it the Junior Youth Spiritual Empowerment Program, where small groups of youth are encouraged to form together. They're mentored by a youth 2 or 3 years older than them. They learn to speak. They learn to form friendships and do acts of community service. They read together, and they have conversations about their goals and aspirations for the future. And this has actually helped many young people all over the world. And finally, I'd like to kind of summarize in the conclusion that we believe in intrinsic nobility of man. We believe in dual nature of man, material and spiritual side of man. And then we have the free will to strengthen one or to dominate one versus the other. Both sides, both spirits are necessary. Too much emphasis on the material side causes harm. And education is the tool that we can actually use, and also maybe in forms of dialogue and conversations. So maybe we can also talk from this group about what can we do in terms of facilitating such elevated conversations. And finally, I would like to thank the group, that the committee that invited me to speak. I wanted to thank all of you for your time and for listening, and I'm looking forward to your comments and thoughts. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Iraj. I really appreciate the phrase, the intrinsic nobility of man. That's a beautiful and true phrase. It's not only a phrase, it's a reality. So I will commit that one to memory, the intrinsic nobility of man. something that you were talking about, and also Tom Bonacci reminds me of the Native American story, where we have two wolves inside of us. You've all heard this, of course, but it's worth repeating. We have two wolves inside of us: a good wolf and a bad wolf. And the chief was telling a young Indian fellow about this story, and the child said, "Well, which wolf will win?" Because the wolves were in a constant battle. And the Native American chief took a big breath and he said, "The one you feed is the one that you will win, the one that will win." So,
Great story. Great
yeah,
story.
it's a good story. It's very appealing to children too. So this is the time for questions, comments from anybody in the attendees audience here. You can take a minute to think, take in. So much richness has been shared. And remember, you can always use the hand under reactions too. Well, I do have a question. I have a question about education, and which seems to be, very critical in the Baha'i. I mean, it is obviously critical. And the schools have a limit. The public schools, anyway, have a limit on what religion you can teach. My understanding, as a former school teacher, is you can teach religion in schools as long as you give credence to many religions. You can't just teach about one religion. So I think people are sort of confused that you cannot teach about religion in school. And then there's also philosophy, which is really what the big questions is about. That's really a philosophical question that are being asked in the big questions. Philosophy is kind of outside of spirituality, or surrounds spirituality, connects spirituality to reality. So these are just kind of a couple of thoughts that went on for me as I was listening to you. Sunshine, go ahead.
Well, my thoughts followed yours, and thank you again to our speaker. And my question would be, I would like further comment on how the Baha'i feels that we can go forward with education, because truly the word education, from the Latin to lead out, but at the same time, you're really, what I hear and what I think we're at a loss is the moral education and the spiritual education of values that we keep subtracting from, because we say, oh, it can't be, God can't be used, or this can't be used. So what is the Baha'is' thoughts or solutions to, it seems to me, a bit of a public dilemma to structure moral education within the schools?
A great question. And although I'm not an education expert, but a lot of the what we call moral or spiritual education has to do with the behavior, have to do with the virtues that children learn. And it used to be that we learn it from our grandparents and our parents, and the structure of the society was, we had this nuclear family, and that was practiced within our culture. But now then it doesn't have to be necessarily a religious education, but it could be an morally inspired education. For example, teaching children about love, teaching them about truthfulness, that truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtues, teaching them about caring and helping others, about generosity, is to me at least, it's moral and spiritual education, and it doesn't. And I don't know the technicalities of the law, that I don't know whether it is considered something that you can teach at schools or not. I know in where my wife was raised in Finland, and went to, and I know in the schools they have actually religious studies without imposing a religion over others. But one of the requirements is that it has to be virtues, or it has to be studies that applies to everybody, doesn't offend any one child or group. So that's those are my thoughts on that.
That sounds like a very good thing. Go ahead, Will.
Well, I was just going to lift up that we recognized the Baha'is of Danville one year, and Sahar Burgess in particular, with one of our first Making a Difference awards, because she was teaching a Baha'i curriculum in her home to neighborhood children on love and peace and justice and compassion, and that you have a curriculum in the Baha'i faith that allows you to be able to do that on a local basis outside of the schools, where folks that desire to have a non-sectarian curriculum that teaches those values can be shared. And we recognized especially Sahar Burgess for doing so for a few years when we learned about that in 2013 or 2012. So it's been around for a while. Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, that program, the Baha'i Inspired program, and the reason I call it Baha'i Inspired program, it's not really based on Baha'i teachings, but it's based on many virtues that is also common with other religions, has been very successful all over the world, particularly in Latin America, India, and Africa, where children don't have as much distraction when they get off school, and it has created bonds of friendship. So instead of joining gangs, they join together and study things together, study stories. They plan and implement community service projects together. So it's been very made a big difference. We have seen some children that are going from ages of 12, 13 to 17, 20, and the impact on them and their lives.
Yes, serving others is something that young people can be passionate about. That they like to do something. So the education is it also, I think, has to include that aspect of how do we serve others? And they have a lot of energy, and there's a lot of people that need that energy. So I'm wondering if you have in the Baha'i tradition, if you have a service project that say like 12 and up can participate in, or is that local? Is that something that locally would happen?
Yeah, generally it is local, and then we have the children to actually come up with a concept and plan it themselves, and of course they always have a mentor that is a few years older than them, so they won't do crazy things. But there's no kind of a formalistic service, but something that the groups come up based on the local needs and the needs of their local communities.
Yeah, of course. Well, that makes sense, based on what are the needs that are right there in front of you. That makes sense. Yes. So any other thoughts? Okay. Oh, Channing, go ahead, please.
I just want to make sure that no one has anything else to say. I have an announcement. Is that okay, Sarah?
Well, it depends on what it is. Knowing you, I'm sure it will benefit all of us, or some of
Right.
us.
Well, one of the programs that we're working on is for you all to have the choice to visit some of the centers of the speakers that we are having speak with us this year. And we've been able to reach out to the Hindu Center in Livermore, as well as Sufism Reoriented, which is right in our own neighborhood, as well as Father Tom's Interfaith Peace Project. And I was just wondering if Father Tom, you could give us a few words about what is the Interfaith Peace Project, because that is our first trip that will be held in June.
Great.
Are we ready to do that now?
Yes.
Yes, yes, please.
Okay. Well, the Interfaith Peace Project was established on September the 8th, 2001, 3 days before 9/11. So it was not a 9/11 program to begin with, but when September 11, 2001 hit, that radically redefined what it is that we did, or what it is that we do. When it started, it was a simple program to bring these kind of conversations to real people in the real world in their home or institutions. So we dealt with groups of one or more to bring an introduction to the faith traditions of the world, as well as to other ways of thinking spiritually and humanly. And they were offered in people's homes, and still are, with bureaucratic simplicity, no charge, no membership, no commitments whatsoever. But if people wanted to continue the practice of peace through understanding, they would do so by doing it in their own lives. As the years went on, 16 other programs developed underneath the banner of the Interfaith Peace Project. And so different people in different parts of the country and the world developed programs, one of which is a Sacred Visits program, to go to individual places of worship and study and spirituality to meet people, predicated on the assumption that you must meet the people you like to talk about. Otherwise, movements become abstract. And so it's a down-to-earth, simple program that's been operating now for, actually goes back before 2001. It's 25 years old, as a practical outreach to help people cope with prejudice, fears, and stereotypes, especially when it comes to people of different religions and cultures.
Do you have a website that people could look at about this?
Interfaithpeaceproject.org.
Thank you.
And coming up in a few weeks, there'll be a legacy site called interfaithpeaceprojectlegacy.org, which will be a review of what we discovered in the past 25 years.
Oh my. So when is that going to be up and running?
We're hoping mid-June.
Mid-June? Okay. That would be well worth tuning into.
We'll let you know.
Okay.
And Father Tom will be there, and for us to meet with him to continue the conversation we've had today, and then also to give you plenty of room for asking questions, to create our own dialogue. And I just wanted to say that the Interfaith Peace Project has probably one of the finest interfaith libraries anywhere in this area. So you're welcome to come and, just not just meet with us, but you're welcome to stay and look at all the books, and they will have some food for us. They're going to be incredibly hospitable. So we will send out the date. Sarah and I are going to work out. We've got 3 dates from June Kirk, who works with Tom, and they're all in June. So if you're interested in coming to that, please let us know. We will probably carpool up there. It's located in Antioch, California, not too far away. And that will be our first visit. And then I'm working on a visit to the Hindu Center in August. And I spoke with the woman this morning. And then the Sufism Reoriented we'll have to work on a little later, because they've had some difficulties lately. So anyway, thank you so much, Sarah. I just wanted to get my 2 cents in.
Well, thank you. I think it's a very deep way of getting to know more about another religion is to go visit, and even attend perhaps, if they have a meeting or a service. But it's a good way to learn about another religion, to share, perhaps even in rituals. So thank you for your work on that. And would you be willing to put your email in the chat box, Channing, in case somebody wanted to get a hold of you directly?
Absolutely.
About the visit to the Interfaith Peace Project, which is coming up. Thank you. So does anybody else have any questions? Yes, Reverend Albert, please.
Yeah, I am always looking for ways to advertise the variety of different programs that are available. I would hope that for your Interfaith Peace Project, that you'll be recording it. If so, I'd like to invite you, it doesn't cost anything, to take one of the slots for Interfaith Awareness Week and make what happens there available around the world. Last year, we had over 46 presentations. This year, we've only got 27, and half of them are already filled. So I would like to invite you, if you had planned to record the program, especially for those of us who live outside of that area or have trouble traveling, whatever, they would be able to see this online.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Albert. We will look into that. We had not planned on that, but we will look into that. Sarah, for some reason, I can't, in the chat box, I can't find the everyone, sending a message to everyone. So
Okay.
I only have the choice of Will, Iraj, Sarah, and Tom.
That's just one of the limitations of my settings in Zoom right now, but if you send it to me, I can put it in there.
Oh, great.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you, Will. Well, I certainly appreciate the rich thoughts and experience and stories that Tom and Iraj have shared with us. Thank you for your energy and your willingness to inspire us, actually, to inspire us with what is going on in your tradition and your faith path. And it is so valuable to everybody. And the real value also is that these programs are recorded. See, Rossmore TV is recording it, and they have a situation now where you can go to channel 28 and choose which one you would like to listen to, just kind of like you do with streaming. In fact, I guess that is what it's called, is streaming. So, and then Will records this and puts it on the Interfaith Council and puts it on YouTube, the Contra Costa County Interfaith Council. Is that right, Will?
That's right. And you can go to that at YouTube/C/Interfaith Council of Contra Costa County, all one word.
Would
Or
you
you
say
can
that?
just look up,
Oh,
you can just look up Interfaith Council of Contra Costa County online inside of YouTube, and you'll find all of our differing playlists, including a whole playlist just for big questions.
good. That's a great resource to be able to archive. There must be like 4 years of the big questions on there now, or maybe more. Yeah, so a rich education. Well, thank you so much, Tom and Iraj, for being here with us, and your time and your thoughts and your personal work in your private lives. It shows your hearts are just shining. how you have been living, and we appreciate. Look at that heart beating. That's really cute, Iraj. How'd you do that? I want to do that. Anyway, until next time we will have Will McGarvey. And Will, do you still call yourself a progressive Protestant?
Yes, but I like to put the emphasis on the first syllable to put the protest back into Protestantism.
Okay. that went by really fast. Okay. And also Reza Sharifzadeh from representing Sufism, not Sufism.
Sharifzadeh.
How do you say that?
Reza Sharifzadeh from the MTO Shamaksudi School of Islamic Sufism in Berkeley.
Yes,
We
Islamic.
just did a visit to their new center that they just finished, and it was an amazing time with them.
Where is that center?
It's on Telegraph in
Oh.
Berkeley.
Really?
Yeah, just a few blocks south of the busiest portions of Telegraph, just south
yeah.
of the university.
Oh, okay. Great. Okay, folks, until June 19th, and I will send out a notification to you. And meanwhile, just radiate love and peace and compassion, and which you all probably do anyway. You don't need me saying that, but just open our hearts more and more. And that's not easy. It's not easy sometimes. I love the beating hearts. Where are you guys finding those?
It's under reactions.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Everybody should put their heart up.
Okay, all right. Let's see if we can do
We'll
that.
end with a lot of hearts. up.
Oh, great. Okay,
Goodman.
under reactions. Under reactions. Heart. Okay, and then great. Look at that. Everybody. Oh, beautiful. Now that is a fun way to end. Thank you, Channing. What a good idea. Oh, I love it. I think we're going to have to make that traditional. That's your job, Channing, from now on. Remind us to end with our beating heart.
Our beating hearts. Yeah.
Once again, thank you for all of your attendance, and hopefully we'll see you June 19th. It's always on a Monday, and just go with the flow, and the flow is love. Thank you. Thank you.